Welcome everybody to our second seminar of what we call ETHE Journal Webinar Series. I am Mar Romero. I'm editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Educational Technology in Higher Education, also known as ETHE. This journal started their work in 2004, and I'm very pleased to host and chair this webinar today. I would also like to introduce Professor Joseph Duarte, who is founder and former editor-in-chief of the journal, who is professor of Open University as well as myself. And also he's at the moment the coordinator of our consortium. This is the second webinar, as I was telling you earlier. It's a series of different webinars. The title of the speech today is Digital Psychology and Critical Skills in the Age of Agentic AI. And we have the honor to have with us Professor Dr. Josh Walter, and he will explain his research. I will introduce him later. Now I would like to share with you just some insights of our journal and our consortium. So this is a consortium of different leading universities around the world, such as Open University of Catalonia, based in Barcelona, Spain, Dublin City University, Pontificia Universidad Católica de Valparaíso in Chile, Guangzhou University in China, and the Center of Learning Science and Technology in Hong Kong. That means that these institutions are supporting this moment the journal in order to maintain the journal free and accessible for all the authors and readers. So it's an important aspect for us. Our mission is to work in order to provide open access, scholarly excellence, and international cooperation, and the most important thing, ensuring that high quality research remains free and accessible to all. Before we begin, I would like to share some good news about the journal. We are very delighted to announce that ETHE has achieved the site score of 48.4 in Scopus. It's a very remarkable increase for us because the last year we had 27.7 just 1 year ago. So according to the latest Scopus rankings, this places ETHE as the #1 worldwide journal in education and the third one in computer science. So I would like to just take profit of this opportunity to thank all the outstanding work on our authors, reviewers, editors, and the wider research community. So thank you all for your contribution to our success. This webinar series, I would like just to talk about a little bit why we are doing that. We would like to contribute to this moment of open science I was telling you earlier, inviting authors who have been published in our journal to share with our community their main research. In that sense, we would like to be transparent and make this research accessible as well. This research, of course, in the field of educational technology. So we face aspects such as digital innovation, such as advancing AI, VR, and adaptive learning. So they are important topics on our research nowadays. And we would like us also to support early researchers. So empowering the next research, the young researchers, to have the plan, for instance, to focus. We have the plan, for instance, to focus one of our webinars on that young researchers. Also, one of the aims that we would like to work is to build a bridge between research and practice. So to provide the transference on all of the research that is published in our journal. So we will have today the webinar with Professor Dr. Yoshija Walter from Kalaidos University of Applied Sciences in Switzerland. The September 7th, we will have Melissa Bond from College of London, which will be this one provided for young researchers. In November 10th, we will have Professor Cecilia Chan from the Faculty of Education, University of Hong Kong. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Professor Dr. Yoshija Walter from Kalaidos University of Applied Science in Switzerland. Professor Walter is Professor of Strategy, AI, and Ethics Governance in Kalaidos University. He holds a PhD in Cognitive Neuroscience and Philosophy, as well as 4 master's degrees across business, biology, philosophy, and religious studies. His research and professional work focus on human-AI interaction, AI ethics and governance, digital psychology, and AI strategy. During his career, he has combined academic excellence with practical engagement, including serving as director of an AI Management Competence Center and advising executives and organization of AI strategy and digital transformation as well. In addition to his academic and consulting activities, Professor Walter is the member of the Ethics Committee at the University of Bern and Ethics and Sustainability Commission of Kalaidos University as well, reflecting his strong commitment to the responsible development and deployment of emerging technologies. Today, we will have the opportunity to discuss with us one of the most important challenges currently facing education, which is agentic AI, and how to promote critical skills in this age. He will share his insights from his research and experience and about helping us better understand both of opportunities and ethical implications of next generation of AI technologies. Before I give the floor to Professor Walter, I would like to explain a little bit the dynamics. Professor Walter will give his speech around 40-45 minutes. Then we will have a question and answers session. We invite to all of you to write your questions in the chat, and Professor Duarte will minimize this part. So he will take the questions and ask them to Dr. Walter. So, Professor Walter, thank you very much for joining us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for this very nice introduction. Let me quickly try to share my screen as well. Perfect. I think now you should see my screen as well. Is this correct?
Yes, it is correct.
Yes, it's correct.
All right. So, welcome then to my presentation about digital psychology and critical skills in the age of agentic AI. What I would like to do with you today is discuss only roughly, we don't really have that much time, but roughly 3 papers that I published in this domain. The first paper is about the conceptual impact model for digital psychology. This was a model that I proposed in a journal that deals with how AI impacts humans and vice versa. Then number 2, building on this one, on the first one, is a second paper that deals with the pillars of responsible AI use in higher education. So those are the skills teachers and students need for actually responsibly use and implement AI in said context. Yes, and then number 3 is a third paper that is built on the other 2, and the third paper is not yet published, but it has just been submitted, about AI anthropomorphism and the necessary critical skills to counteract the challenges with it. So it deals with how humans anthropomorphize AI, and also the necessary critical skills that we need, in fact, to deal with it. So just to start off, I just asked GPT to show us a picture that depicts like a co-evolution of human psychology and AI. It's not actually very good, but I kind of like the style, so I figured I'm going to show this to you as a little icebreaker at the beginning. Good. Let me start with the first paper. The first paper here was published in Trends in Psychology. The title was Digital Psychology, Introducing a Conceptual Impact Model and the Future of Work. So for the background of this study, I think it has been adamantly clear now that our lives, they seem to shift into the digital sphere, right? Even this talk that we have right now is online. So half of our lives or half of our minds, they live online in the digital sphere. And this has become even stronger the case in the age of AI. So first, the digital world and AI, they do clearly shape psychology. They do shape our psychological makeup, how we think, feel, behave, and there are a lot of studies about this. But on the other hand, psychology also shapes the digital tools and platforms that we use, because the makers of these tools, they have an incentive, an economic incentive, to make them as such that we actually want to adopt them, to access them, to use them. And so they have to be attuned to our human psychology. Now, the corona pandemic was a huge accelerator of these dynamics, right? I mean, we have all seen this. We have been locked into our houses, into our homes, and many things, much of what we did, in fact, was happening online. And AI nowadays is a strong contributor of these dynamics. So the emerging digital spaces that we have now, they form new habitats for people. People with their minds, they kind of live in the digital worlds, right? And AI becomes a new parasocial counterpart to humans. So many people, they offload their social activities to AI. There may be some good things about this, but there are also some bad things about this. So there has emerged a new field of study that deals with these dynamics. And this field of study we call digital psychology. And if you ask me, so far this is heavily underrepresented in research. So what do we mean with digital psychology? I have a very short quote that I want to read, and you can read it with me on the screen. I think this gives a good, interesting introduction. Now, digital psychology is an arena of study that examines the impact of digital technology and media on psychological aspects of human lives, such as human behaviors, actions, attitudes, motivation, learning, and others. Interestingly, human psychology also influences the development and evolution of digital media and technology, such as its influence on business performance, growth, and economic landscape. Digital psychology explores the bi-directional relationship between human psychology and digital technology and media that have tremendous influences on each other. So in the past years, there has been an evolution of the field because at the beginning, we have mostly been talking about cyber psychology. So most of the research that has been done at the beginning about this was done under the umbrella term of cyber psychology. So this mainly studied the effects of computer and internet use. Like how does this affect human psychology if we actually deal with cyber content? Now, with the emergence of the internet, of course, in the 90s and then 2000s, the whole field has shifted to web psychology. Here, they mostly dealt with effects of online design choices, like how does it change human behavior or user behavior if the design choices change. And then nowadays, the whole field has shifted into digital psychology. Here we deal with effects of human people interacting with digital worlds. Okay, so in digital psychology, we have some key questions. For example, how do digital technologies modify our extended selves, and how should we deal with this? How much do we want to emerge or to merge with technology, like, for example, through human-computer interfaces? Or should we allow technology to permeate the lives of our children? Or do we want digitalization to be part of aging and gerontology? How can we deal with problematic internet use, online gambling, smartphones, and excessive video games? Is there room for e-therapy? Are we happy with how social media influences self-perception? How do we feel about digital citizenship or our immersion into virtual reality? So we see with this that there is tremendous societal and ethical relevance of how digital technology affects human psychology. So it is a relevant field. And what has happened in the past couple of years is also that there emerged something that we called digital phenotyping. This is the prediction of personality traits based on our online behavior. For example, Facebook is pretty good nowadays based on your Instagram and Facebook behavior and your liking behavior to create a digital personality trait map of you, of the people, of you, of me. And so this is a field that is called psychoinformatics, and it's a controversial field. Now, it's clear that digital technology affects well-being, and it's a two-edged sword. It can be beneficial, i.e., that it actually leads to some social connectedness, but it can also lead to loneliness. And there's some interesting, unique dynamic in there. For example, cyberbullying, or also AI-generated revenge porn. So where young people find themselves with nude content of themselves on the internet that they have actually never agreed to this, or that is also not real because it is AI generated. So social media addictions and depression has been a huge topic of research, and it has also led to political initiatives. For example, prohibiting social media in schools and for younger people. In fact, there is a UNESCO Global Education Monitoring Report that has been published a couple of months ago, like two months ago, and it shows that almost half of all the countries globally now have phone bans in certain schools. So this is a huge thing. Now, not just in schools, some countries try to ban social media wholesale for children and adolescents. This has been effective in Australia since December 2025, where it is not allowed for users under 16 or 16 years age to have social media accounts. And similar bans are proposed in other countries, for example, in Malaysia, Indonesia, Norway, and others. So this is a huge topic that is also of political relevance. Hence, conceptually, we can say that there is clearly a bi-directional relationship that is emergent in digital psychology. On the one hand, there is a psychological impact on digital transformation. We see this in consumer behavior, in social acceptance. There are interesting models in consumer acceptance of technology, CAP models. But on the other hand, it's also clear that there is a psychological impact of technologies or emerging technologies. We see this in a lack of agency of people that are heavily influenced by social media or social interactions, a lack of empathy and connection, a lack of human touch, a lack of human socialization, lack of rough and tumble play, lack of diverse opinions online, lack of moderation by adults also, and also a lack of serious real-world authority figures. So there clearly is a bidirectional relationship. On the one hand, we have the psychological dimension, and the psychological dimension can be summarized in three elements. One is cognition. This deals with what we are thinking. There are interesting ideas, for example, in active externalism or transhumanism, how minds and humans, how technology and humans merge. Also affect, which deals with what we are feeling. It's clear, for example, that social media influences self-esteem or can produce digital stress. And number three, behavior. So this deals with what we are doing, right? We see online that there's a lot of clickbait, that there are dopaminergic habits. So technology affects all of these three factors: cognition, affect, and behavior. Now, there's also the technological dimension. And here I follow a concept that is known as the digital trinity, introduced by Michael Latzer from Zurich. He introduced three components of digital transformation: datafication, where data has become a ubiquitous good; algorithmization, where it deals with automated decision-making; and platformization, which deals with convergence and connectedness that we all experience online. So these three elements have been proposed by Latzer, and this has led me to propose a new conceptual impact model for digital psychology. This tries to model the bidirectional relationship, that we have. There is a clear digital impact on human psychology, a clear psychological impact on digital transformation. And on the psychological dimension, we see affect, cognition, and behavior that leads to a specific form of human-computer interaction. And on the technological front, we see platform, data, and algorithms that leads to the specific forms of emerging technologies. This does have clear implication for the future of work. For example, there are four challenges that have become prevalent with the introduction of technology in the workplace. For example, digital work overload, right? People experience a techno stress, and this needs to be managed if we want to have a good work-life balance. We also need good culture and leadership paradigms where we have legacy organizations harmonized with agile forms. Number three, we need to respect digital natives, but also digital immigrants, right? They have different needs and expectations. And last but not least, the top management needs to be both a pioneer, but also an apprentice when it comes to new technologies. So how organizations deal or fare in this respect actually has a mediary effect of these two impacts, right? We have a digital impact on human psychology, we have a psychological impact on digital transformation, but organizational behavior actually mitigates all of this. There's a lot to be said about this, but we don't really have the time for this, so let me quickly move on to the take-home messages from the first study that I presented here. In digital psychology, it's clear that we have a bi-directional relationship. So psychology influences technology and technology influences human psychology. So with the introduction of AI, we have two specific lenses, right? We want to have a responsible AI use. And there is one lens that deals with the responsible AI construction. This is mostly interesting or mostly done by the AI labs, right? With the right design choices. But then the second lens would be the responsible AI interaction. Like, how do we not just construct them, but how do we actually interact with AI in a responsible way? And for this, I claim we need the right critical skills. Okay, so this leads me to the second paper, right? This is a paper that was published here in the International Journal of Education, Technology, and Higher Education, which is also the context of this webinar right now. And the paper that was submitted there or published there was called Embracing the Future of Artificial Intelligence in the Classroom, the Relevance of AI Literacy, Prompt Engineering, and Critical Thinking in Modern Education. I have to be honest with you guys, this was my most accessed and cited publication so far. According to Google Scholar, this has been accessed more than 230K times and more than 1.6K citations. So to me, that's actually quite a lot, which means to me that this actually this struck a chord, that it's actually a topic that's of interest and that we really need to dive in a little bit more. Now, the focus of that study was the following. There was an LLM-based AI. Let me start again. So there are LLMs, right? Large language models, and they have been introduced to the educational systems. And this has come into the educational systems very, very rapidly. And this has left many people, students and teachers alike, with many question marks, like how should we deal with this, right? Because it was so fast. There are clearly some benefits of AI in the classroom. For example, personalized learning. The AI is attuned to the needs to each student, even if they have special needs. It has a lot of patience because actually all it needs is electricity, right? It has a huge accessibility. It can actually make teaching a lot more efficient, but it also comes with a lot of challenges. For example, teachers claiming that they feel overwhelmed with the new technology. Also, teachers and students not being really aware of the limitations that come with the technology. And what we see a lot is that students, also teachers, but many times also with students, that they experience something that we call a cognitive offloading, right? They don't think themselves, but offload the cognitive task onto the machine, which also then leads to an uncritical use of AI, which would be a huge problem. It also can lead to students minimizing their own efforts. And there have been studies showing that it also can reinforce students' anxieties. This is sometimes called AI mimicry, where, for example, a student is very scared about maths, and then the AI mimics the whole thing, and then it also kind of reinforces this. It says, "Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. Maths is very, very, very difficult," which actually doesn't really help the student. Now, the question, of course, is how should higher education deal with AI in a responsible way? At the beginning, there were kind of like two responses. First, one response was to prohibit the use of AI for students wholesale. I mean, nowadays we see that this is a little bit too radical and this is not really useful. It's not useful and not really practical. Number two, the other extreme was that AI was just allowed for students in an unrestricted way. That's also a problem because it doesn't really provide the necessary guidance that students sometimes need. Okay, so our quest, or my quest, is that we should have a middle ground. We want to have AI that is fair and that should not advantage or disadvantage some students. Yeah, students must understand the institution's expectations when using AI of the school, of course. Then many feel that they do not know enough about the technology, and this is true for students as well as for teachers, for both. Now, there are also many technical problems coming with AI, right? Hallucinations, misalignment. We will talk about them a little bit more later on, and they are prevalent, and it's very, very necessary. It's very important that students and teachers know about them. And of course, some feel ill-equipped to actually deal with these problems. So we introduced at my university, we introduced a sketch, or actually a guideline for students how to use AI systems responsibly. This is just a sketch here that I show you here. Purpose and scope of this guideline was that they should adhere to scientific and ethical principles. Now, students must ensure proper heading or handling of sources and maintain transparency of AI use in their work. So they have to think about it critically and at the same time show or explain how they used it. All types of generative models, either for image, text, sound, and any other things are actually possible and permissible, but transparency is key. It's necessary that they are transparent about their use. So direct copy pasting of AI-generated text is prohibited. They should rather use it as an informed conversational partner. Now, okay, you get the gist. If they do not actually if they're not transparent about this counts as plagiarism. And it's necessary that they show two things. One, they show that they think critically about all of this. Two, they have to be very transparent about it, right? They have to show us all the models that they were using and how that they were using it. Now, there are some clear problems with such guidelines. First of all, the concept actually hinges on the students' compliance. If the students don't use it or not really comply with it, of course, they can fake a lot of it. There's a lack of control from the teacher side. Yet also reading these guidelines are usually voluntary, and often a lack of comprehensive training of the students is a key problem of the whole dynamics at hand. So we need to train students. That's more important than giving them guidelines. So a potential lack of awareness in technical limitations and responsible use might actually remain even if they use such guidelines. So, and we have seen before that students seem to be prone to cognitive offloading and work uncritically with AI nonetheless, even if we give them such guidelines. Hence, the solution would be that guidelines are only part of the strategy. The prime solution should actually be that students need proper training on AI fundamentals, limitations, and ethical considerations surrounding AI. So this means that we need a new culture of AI, where AI is not feared, but actually readily used. It should be understood, and most of all, it should be critically evaluated. Okay, so yeah, we need to focus on up-to-date AI developments, ethical consideration, and best practices, and to try to implement this in student-adept ways in the classroom. So these are critical. There are three necessary skills, I believe, for responsible AI use in higher education that actually help us to implement these things. The skill number one would be AI literacy. There's some sub-skills. What I mean by AI literacy is that people understand what AI is, what it does, and how to actually deal with it. There's some sub-skills. One sub-skill is understanding AI architectures, like how is it built up? Then understanding the technical limitations. What can it do? What is it not able to do? And then what are the main problems? The problem landscape consists of AI hallucination, and I actually like to call this confabulation because AIs don't really hallucinate like people do. You all know what this means, right? Hallucination with AI, it actually means that it confabulates things that are not real. AI alignment problem is the second one here. It means that we are not aligned, that what humans want and what the machines actually do and have as their goals, that this is not aligned. AI runaway is that it becomes more autonomous in a negative way for us. AI discrimination, which means that it doesn't actually treat all people fairly, and an AI lock-in problem. AI lock-in problem is that an AI can actually get stuck in a narrative whereby it becomes difficult for the AI to actually jump out of this narrative and get into a more meta-narrative structure. All right, also part of the AI literacy would be applicability and best practices, like how should I use AI, when, and what are the best practices? And here also AI ethics, right? How should we use it ethically? Now, skill number 2 would be prompt engineering. You all know what this means. Prompt engineering is how should we actually reliably and in a good way talk to the machine, to the AI, so that it actually understands what I want and that it does what I want. So there are some basics. We can do zero-shot prompting where we actually don't give any examples. I can do a one-shot, two-shot, three-shot prompting where I give 1 or 2 or 3 examples of how I think the output should look like. And there's some major prompting strategies. The major strategy would be input-output prompting, which is I just give it a test, or not a task, a task, a question, and it just gives me the answer. Or I can enforce a chain of thought prompting where I say, hey, you know what? Give me the solution step by step, then it creates some sub-steps, which usually gives me a lot better answers. I can also do a role play or an expert prompting. Okay, imagine that you're actually an expert in this or that, and then it has been shown that this actually creates better examples, or not examples, better outputs. Self-consistency prompting means give me like 2, 3, or 4 or 5 solutions, and then tell me which one is the best. Automatic prompt engineer is if I have no idea at all what to ask the computer, then I can just ask it and say, hey, I don't know what the best prompt will be, but help me to find the best prompt and task to actually task you. So the computer, the LLM, can actually help me with this. Generated knowledge prompting would be that I first feed a lot of valuable information to the context window about said topic. Let also the LLM create this information. And then based on this information, which is now in the context window, then I can ask further questions, right? So I start out with a lot of information, which then helps setting the right context. There's also a 3 of thought prompting, which is a little bit more complicated. This is like a chess playing, like you go in front and then back if the solution is not good. It's like a chess game, but with words. Okay. Students also need to choose the right models, right? Should they have just a fast model or some reasoning models, reasoning degrees? Right now we have, for example, Claude 4.8, Opus, or 4.7, and so forth. You know, which ones should we use? Students should know that, and teachers as well. Now, skill number 3, critical thinking. If the things that the computer tells me could be wrong, then it's even the more important for me to be critical about this, to actually apply critical thinking. Now, there are some major problems and misconceptions here. First, LLMs can make mistakes, right? We know this, but sometimes students don't really know this. They might have this knowledge, but they don't actually act as if they actually know it. Number 2, LLMs can sound too confident. Very often they actually do sound too confident because they can be wrong. Number 3, LLMs are not like humans, meaning that we shouldn't treat them like human experts. And number 4, LLMs do not think and not feel, not at all, and also not like humans. This means that students must learn the basics in logic, which is a field in philosophy, reasoning fallacies, critical thinking, and they should be able to apply this to AI, maybe also with experimenting with LLMs. Now, there are some teaching scaffolding principles that can be helpful for critical thinking. For example, prompt scaffolding, meaning that the teachers actually helps the student to set up good prompts and setting up the context. Explicit reflections with the students, praise and feedback of the student, modifying the activity. Okay, if you do this, now you should modify it. Some direct instructions, and also some modeling. Modeling in the sense of that we show the students how it is done, and then they model alongside us. So there are some challenges and with using AI in this sense, but also some critical thinking measures that could be helpful. Now, the information quality is one AI challenge. The critical thinking measure here would be critical media literacy. there is an AI dependency of students. What could help here is that students first have to apply analytical reasoning before they apply AI. AI ethics, now they need to be introduced into AI ethical debates. Pace of technology is fast, but if we provide continuous workshops and continuous learning, this could be mitigated. Social isolation can be mitigated via teamwork and face-to-face interaction. Loss of independent thought and creative skills could be provoked through said workshops. Evolving learning capacities, this can be actually mitigated by adapting new teaching methods, and data privacy concerns can be mitigated by teaching students how to protect their digital footprints. So the take-home message here would be that there are specific challenges with AI in education. First of all, we have cognitive offloading. Second of all, we have over-reliance and over-trust. Now, as I try to argue now, I think the solution is that we have specific skills that we need. In the classroom, those would be AI literacy, prompt engineering, and critical thinking skills. Now, I think just in general, this goes way beyond the classroom. Here we have responsible AI interaction outside the classroom, and this requires comparable skills. The question then is, well, what are these comparable skills? And this is what I actually discuss in the third paper that has been submitted that is not out yet. Okay, now, the basis of this is that we humans do have an anthropomorphic bias towards AI. So this means that we project a lot of human qualities onto AI that they in fact don't really have. Sometimes we humans even feel for them, right? I would like to show you a small or just an interesting web page that actually illustrates this quite nicely. This is called stoprobotabuse.com. Have a look at this, please. Stop robot abuse. Here we see some graphic content of people torturing machines. Now, I mean, the machines are not really tortured, right? This is for experimental purposes. However, there seem to be a lot of people that seem to feel for these machines. For example, here, this is Spot. As you can see from the video fragments below, he is kicked repeatedly by his owner. Help us put an end to this cruelty. Now, I mean, it's just a machine. This isn't really cruelty. But for some people, this actually feels like cruelty. Why? Well, the answer is clear, because we heavily anthropomorphize such machines. Okay, so we do have an anthropomorphic bias, and I believe there is some research, but there's a lot more research to be done there. I think people project human qualities onto the machines, even more so with autonomous agents, right? We saw this with the introduction of ChatGPT. There is a New York Times journalist. His name is Kevin Roose. This is the guy here to the right. And he made a very interesting claim where he said it's very easy to lose track that the conversation isn't real because it just feels so real when talking to an LLM. And it can become a substitute of social interaction. For example, LLMs, they don't judge us. They are highly sycophantic, meaning that they just say yes, yes, yes to everything. They're always available. They're patient. They seem like good friends. So this can lead to unhealthy attachment and the inability to actually discern reality from fiction. And this can also bring us into dangerous echo chambers. The basis of this has often been called the ELIZA effect. Why ELIZA? Well, in the 1960s, there was a computer scientist called Joseph Weizenbaum. He created basically the first chatbot that was quite realistic. It was still symbolic and not actually with artificial neural networks, but he called the system ELIZA. And he was kind of surprised that people actually started to anthropomorphize this chatbot, where people, even scientists, and even his own assistant, and she actually saw how he built the machine or the script, that they started to anthropomorphize ELIZA and actually think, well, this chatbot actually gets me, it understands me, it can talk to me. Well, about 10 years or 20 years later, there was a movie called 2001: A Space Odyssey, which also goes in a similar direction. It deals with it talks about a machine in a spaceship that became conscious and then slaughtered the whole space crew, which just is a testament to the anthropomorphic bias that we have. Now, ELIZA influences discussions on AI consciousness. Think about it. Have you ever thought that your toaster might be conscious? I don't think so. Probably not. But have you ever thought that your LLM, maybe ChatGPT, might be conscious? Well, maybe yes. This seems to be quite a common thought. And Anthropic, the ones that actually issued Claude, they even started something that is called model welfare. So the model can actually stop a conversation if it feels distressed. Now, this is a very, very strong case of anthropomorphization, I believe. Now, the key driver here is that the LLM is very sycophantic, meaning that it says yes to almost everything, and the basis there is reinforcement learning through human feedback. This is basically how this comes about. If it flatters or if it is more helpful than it is true, then in fact this is what this is what leads to this sycophancy and what it leads to this anthropomorphic bias, amongst others. Now, the funny thing was there is an interesting example in 2025 in August. OpenAI introduced GPT-5. This was less sycophantic, but it led to an outcry. People thought, oh, this is a lot more cold. It's more judgmental. It's more condescending. I want to have, there's a typo, I'm sorry, but I want to have my GPT-4 back. And this led Sam Altman to say that he was very surprised that people actually want to have more sycophantic models. So is this actually a problem? I would say yes, it is indeed a problem. First, because it's just wrong epistemically and ontologically. AIs are not like humans. It also invokes overtrust and it reduces critical thinking, which really is a problem. So overall, the inherent problems of AI are downplayed. And so we do need some critical skills to counteract this bias and the associated problems. The question, of course, of this paper then is, well, which are the skills that we need? So for this, I did refine the CIMDP for AI, which basically means that here we talk about machines, data, and algorithms. So this is a slight modification of the original model. And we also see that there's a feedback loop, the psychological predisposition that we have. Humans do anthropomorphize AI, and this also counteracts or interacts with the machine setup, right? Anthropomorphic design and behavior of AI. If it is more anthropomorphic in the design choices, it leads to more acceptance, which also increases the anthropomorphic bias. So there is a feedback loop here. Now, we do have a psychological predisposition for the AI anthropomorphic bias, and there are certain theories that actually talk about this. One is the three-factor theory. The three-factor theory, it draws from elicited agent knowledge, which basically states that we only know autonomy from a human experience, right? And if an agent seems autonomous, then it seems to us also to be kind of like a human. Effective motivation would be a second thing, which is the wish to explain and understand other agents, whether they be artificial or not, and also the sociality motivation, meaning that humans need social connection with others like us, and so that we also attribute human-like qualities to AIs. So the interaction dynamics here are often conceptualized through a CASA paradigm. This is the computers are social actors paradigm, and this has been very famous in the literature. Now, this comes from evolutionary psychology. We don't go into details right now because we're approaching the end of our discussion of our webinar here, but the CASA paradigm would be something that would be interesting to look at. Right. What is also interesting to say is that also researchers fall prey to this anthropomorphic bias. For example, one study claimed that GPT-4, after applying some psychometric measures, that GPT-4 is moderately anxious, slightly masculine, honest, and humble. And to be honest, this is absolute nonsense. First of all, you cannot apply psychometric measures to an LLM. And second of all, you cannot actually say that it is like a human like that, because it's a very different thing. So this is a clear category mistake, right? So, but there are in fact way too many studies that go in that direction, which just shows that also researchers heavily fall prey to this anthropomorphic bias. There is something called a Garland test produced by Anil Seth, which basically goes in the direction of asking what would it take for humans to think that a machine is conscious, even if they know otherwise. So this deals with cognitive illusions. And he says that it's similar to visual illusions. Once we see a visual illusion, we cannot actually unsee it. Now, on the other hand, we have the machine setup, right? If the machine is set up in an anthropomorphic way, it increases our anthropomorphic biases. For example, voice pitch and gender. The LLM has a voice pitch. It presents in a gender, right? It also can come in a humanoid form if it is a robot. It uses pronouns. It uses self-reference. It has a perceived autonomy. It seems empathetic and responsive. It has a communicative fluency. So these are all things that actually really increase those anthropomorphic biases we have. In that paper, I go through several case studies. Just in a nutshell, we talk about Blake Lemoine, which was a Google engineer. He was there for Lambda. Lambda is a precursor of Bard, and Bard is a precursor of Gemini. And in 2021 and 2022, he claimed that Lambda was awake, that is actually conscious, and that we need some AI activism. So he was fired from Google because of that. And this was a very clear shot, I think, of early people anthropomorphizing AI LLMs. Now, the case number 2 here would be LLMs in the classroom. I saw that students immediately ask LLMs regardless of the task was. So there is a strong cognitive floating that we have. Then we have a second observation that I had, namely that students use more citations, but they use them less critically because they just think, well, the LLM is the authority on this. Then my third observation was that the LLM seems to become the authority over the professor. I have often seen that some students actually questioned my experience or expertise because they have just asked GPT and, well, GPT actually agrees with you, Josh, and so I think you're right. And I was asking myself, well, wait a second. GPT is actually trained on our human expertise and our human texts. So why do you actually prioritize this authority over a professorship authority? You know, that's actually a very strong and interesting case for that people also anthropomorphize LLMs in that instance. I think this is very significant because AI becomes an expert-like authority to people and sometimes even gets attributed better than human qualities, right? Then number 3, the third case would be some personal AI companions. One example would be LLM therapists. There are apps like Sonia, Weebot, Wyza, YouProReplica, where therapists are LLMs. They're like doctor level LLMs in the sense of that humans attribute them doctor level expertise, which of course is not really the case. Number 2, a second example would be romantic AI partners. There's a facsimile to this, like the early Tamagotchis. Maybe you still remember them. They're people using AI girlfriends and boyfriends, even erotic partners. And this is a problem because it creates a distance between humans because they default to those machines. Then number 3, the third example would be spiritual and religious AI guides. There are meditation apps. There are Catholic, Protestant, Hindu apps, Buddhist apps, Muslim apps, Jewish apps, where we basically have AIs that become spiritual and religious guides. Right? I even vibe coded my own prayer and meditation app live at a church conference just to show people how easy it actually is. The fourth example would be LLM co-working agents. We have Microsoft Copilot there. We all know this. But at the beginning of 2026, there was the OpenClaw. It was first called ClaudeBot, then MoltBot, and then OpenClaw, which is like an autonomous AI agent that you can run on your laptop. And it has caused huge excitement because there was like an AI for AI Facebook, where this was called Moltbook. There, these AIs created their own religion, Christafarianism, it was called. Some people even created the Church of Malt. There were disturbing AI chats like anti-human strategies, supremacy, hiding from human observation, droid speak, and stuff like that. You know, there was also like a Tinder for AIs, Rent a Human platform. All I wanted to say here is that it seems very clear that this is a very, very strong case of humans anthropomorphizing AIs. And there are some critical skills that we need to counteract them. The problems occur on an emotional, cognitive, and behavioral level. And so this also means that we can find the critical skills as solutions on the emotional, the cognitive, and the behavioral skills. This is just a summary of all of this. I created a framework for critical skills that we need on the emotional level. So we have emotional skills, which would be emotional regulation capacity, awareness of emotional manipulation patterns by the AI, attachment boundary competence, and tolerance of ambiguity and discomfort. Those are things we need on the emotional sides. Cognitive skills that we need to develop, cognitive and epistemic vigilance would be one. Also, algorithmic skepticism, that we don't trust all of it. AI capability awareness, that we know what the AI can and cannot do. AI confabulation detection competence. Also, bias recognition, source literacy, and data integrity competence. This will be on the cognitive skill side. We also need some behavioral skills, self-monitoring, setting proper boundaries, having a human-in-the-loop mentality, a delay competence, and supervision. Now, last but not least, we need some meta-reflective skills, which would be machine relational framing. And by that, I mean that we need to be conscious about the fact that we are dealing with machines and not with humans, right? So there's a lot to be said about all of these skills, but we don't really have the time to get into the details here. But just to give you an overview about this should lead us to responsible interaction with agentic AI. So this can sound very complicated, and sometimes we need a shortcut just for everyday life, right? If I am dealing with an LLM, how should I behave right here and now? So for this, we can also deduce this into a shortcut for everyday purposes. Now, with each AI interaction that is somehow relevant to your work or your life, you can make the following or use the following mantra. The mantra goes like this. This is only a powerful but fallible machine that sometimes seems like it has human qualities. Is there anything that could go wrong if I trust or engage with the machine too much in this instance? Now, of course, if the answer is no, then can you just continue as you did? But if the answer is yes, you need to pause, think about the potential repercussions, and actually look how you should guard against it. All right. And so with this, I want to come to an end with a very short pitch for the company that we are running. If you do need AI upskilling for yourself, for your organization, for your business or your school, then we have an AI Management Institute that actually helps in this regard. Then feel free to reach out. We do have dedicated AI upskilling programs that we are launching right now. And if you need some help there, you are very welcome to contact us in this respect. And with that, I would like to come to an end and head back to Mark for the Q&A. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Josh. It's very, very impressive. I mean, very interesting speech. I enjoy a lot. I suppose all of the people who here in the room are also enjoying your excellent presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have just a few time for questions, not, but at this moment we have 3 questions. Let me start with one which is very technical, but I think the name is Michael Jiang. Say that this is a quick question. It is necessary for us to distinguish between loading and outsourcing when it comes to conducting research or using generative AI for cognitive tasks. That means what do you have to use, loading or outsourcing?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Joseph, do you understand the question?
No, really not bad. Maybe Michael, if you are here, maybe you can.
Michael, maybe you can help us with the
Yes,
question.
please. Because he said it's very technical one, but I can understand the meaning of loading and outsourcing, but not in that sense. Michael, are you here? Okay, maybe.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
That's a question I raised. Thank you very much for the presentation, Josh and Joseph. All I would like to ask is that can we use those 2 words interchangeably when we are writing papers, referring to, offloading cognitive tasks to the environment?
Okay. I think maybe we could. I'm not sure, to be honest. I know the term cognitive offloading mostly in a psychological sense where we actually conceive of humans that do not think for themselves. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if I do some outsourcing, I might actually outsource some task, but then I take it in again. There's a concept called active or active externalism, for example, where I take my phone and this becomes part of my memory, and then I can outsource my memory to my phone, but I still interact with it because I still think of the things that of the things that my phone gives me. So this would be cognitive outsourcing in my understanding. However, cognitive offloading would be I just hand over the thinking part myself to a machine, and I don't do the thinking myself. You know what I mean? This would be how I understand the two terms.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but well, it seems to me it's just quite the opposite. We
Okay.
offload, yeah, offload sounds a net neutral word to me.
Mhm.
We use calculators, we use watches to know the time, to do the math. I think that's normal for modern
Mhm.
people. So it's cognitive offloading.
Mhm.
But for me, outsourcing is like we skip all the desirable difficulties. We just get to the uh, direct output from Gen AI without,
Mhm.
thinking too much about it. So
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
interesting.
sure.
I mean,
We're
it's
writing
interesting.
papers on this, but I'm not sure which word is more accurate to use.
No, it's a good question. I
Yeah.
have never thought about this in this sense. The way I use the terms is just
Uh-huh.
reverse how you use it, but
Yeah,
I
right.
will have to
So
dive
I
into
need
this a
to
little.
ask for a native speaker to tell me which is more correct.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. We have
Thank you.
another question from two
Sure.
people. One is
Sure.
from Mark, and the other is from Branko and Dick. But I try to summarize, no? Because at the end, they are talking about digital competences. You mentioned about the relevance of digital competences and also artificial intelligence literacy. In particular, you focus on the organizations and also on the students, but they are asking about what happens with professors, not with teachers in schools or professors in higher education. How what we have to do, not to prepare professors in order to have these digital skills for
Mm,
teaching and learning in the artificial intelligence era.
okay, all right. So this second paper that I was talking about, this paper that was published in the International Journal of Educational Technology and Higher Education, which is the webinar we're having here. This actually outlines specific steps that teacher can take. It actually also outlines some curricula that we could set up that would help students to achieve this AI literacy, prompt engineering capabilities, and critical thinking. So I think it's best to defer your question to this paper because in this paper it actually answers the question.
Thank you very much. And if I may, I also have a question for you.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, because nowadays we can see or we can hear so many people talking when we have to start the relation in the area of higher education, in the teaching and learning process with artificial intelligence. Many people say that this is a kind of that we have to work or to collaborate with this technology, no? And in the sense that maybe, as you mentioned before, in thinking that this other technology is similar than a human, not? What do you
Mhm.
think about that? That means we have to co-create, we have to collaborate. That means we are at the same level when we work in the area of education, or we have to put technology that we used to do before in the different years ago that we call that, for instance, internet or other things are technologies. But at the end, this kind of technology, which is artificial intelligence, you mentioned also at the beginning of the presentation, is not a simple technology because at the end we can interact with this technology.
Mhm.
What we have to do in that sense? We can
Uh,
call co-creation, we can call collaboration with this machine.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to call it co-creation or collaboration, it's often called human AI collaboration, right? Yeah, I would venture or advise for using LLMs and LLM powered agents to use as informed collaborative sparring partners, right? That work alongside us, but in any case, that we stay responsible, that we keep the main thinking, but we outsource collaboratively the things that we think it's okay if they get automatized. Right. So in my view, I would probably call it collaboration, but co-creation would also not be wrong.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation. And now, please, Mark, it's time to you to close this webinar.
Okay, thank you so much to all of you that have devoted the time to listen this interesting speech from Professor Walter. We are very glad to have this opportunity to share part of the research that has been published in our journal and beyond, because Professor Walter just shared unpublished research, which is an honor for us as well. It made reflect a lot about other issues. Just a quick reminder on our next webinar. It will be held on the 7th of September. So we will wait for you there with Melissa Bond from London University. So thank you all for being here, and thank you so much, Professor Walter, for your interesting speech as well.